Hello and welcome to episode 47 of The Imperial Truth. I'm Greg. As usual, Neil is joining me.
Hello, Greg.
Hello, Neil. Before we go anywhere else, let's talk sponsors. I'll take Element Games, elementgames.co.uk for all your plastic crack, as usual. And you can go through the imperialtruth.com, click on the banner, and you're supporting the show for anything you need.
And it's my turn to mention Lil Legend Studios. If you've got anything planned that needs painting, building, or whatever you want, whatever, a project that you just need to get done and you don't have the time, definitely give Miles a call, and he can definitely help you out.
Yeah, once again, I think he's going to the Forge World Open Day. I think he's doing that summoning thing again, the summoning model.
Yes.
Could be wrong, that one, but get hold of him, because he said that if you want a commission of it, then he can pick up them models as well. So, which will be good, which will be very cool.
Very cool indeed.
Absolutely. So, Neil, as usual, I'm going to guess you're painting Mr. P.
Yes, I am. I'm very nearly finished. Do you remember in the last episode we had a chat about how much we wanted to try and get done?
Yes.
In between. I'm very, very close to my target.
But you failed because we were
I
recording.
failed.
So you might as well have not done anything.
I might as well just hang the brushes up.
Indeed. So your his like final touches?
Yeah, I've got everything done that I would need to, the main body and the legs. But I'm reworking one of the legs at the moment. So it's taken a little bit longer.
It's just because it's not quite up to the same standard as the other bits?
Yeah, the problem is I started on this leg. This is the first leg I did. So lots of test colours. Yeah, that's great. Moved on all the way through. And as I've now finished the other leg, I've gone, that first leg needs redoing now because it doesn't match any of the current non-metallics. It all looks completely off. So I had to redo all of it just to bring it up to the same standard.
Oh, the joys of competition painting, eh?
Yeah, indeed. Indeed.
You're loving it. In which case I might as well mention my 3 models that I tried to get done. For those who follow me on Twitter, you may have noticed that a couple of weekends ago I lost a day through a fire in the evening, sleeping in late, and then having to go back to that job. So that was like one whole day out of not a huge amount I had for painting, to be honest. And then podcast bits. And
Are you blaming a fire?
I'm not blaming a fire. I'm saying it was part
a contributing
of the reason,
factor.
Indeed. A few other things as well. Don't get me wrong, but I've got most of the. In fact, no, I've got the base colours down and a bit more. So I've done the bulk of the work on those models.
Oh, good.
But so in fact, I've just gone over because the way I do my reds, I've talked about it before. Corn red, another layer of corn red. I'm on the second layer of corn red on the models. And
that's interesting actually, because I've recently been doing some reds on Perturabo, and I found that even though those base colours, I find the red comes out so much better with 2 or 3 coats.
Yeah,
of the base.
And it's just the nature of the pigments on those on any paint really. The first layer does a good job. The second layer just kind of smooths it over.
Yeah, and I think when you then adding highlights or shades or whatever you want to do to it, that extra pigment and that flatter colour makes it look a lot better. Yeah,
it also takes it one shade brighter off the black as well.
Yes.
So it's something you can do with paints. Your undercoat dictates the tone of the next colour on top of it, and so on and so forth. So yeah, you're painting with white undercoat, you're going to get a brighter colour. If you've got a metallic, and then you're painting any colour on top of that, you're going to get a bit of a sheen through that. If you're painting black, it's going to be darker. So just the second coat of red on there just takes it from a kind of a scab red, as it were, not the old colour, but an actual scab red, takes it just one touch higher to a more of a flowing blood kind of red.
Yes.
Which on those models is what I want. So it was like, cool, I'll do that. And also it helps with the coverage as well, so it works fine in that respect. I did say I was going to try and get to use the other paints. I haven't been able to use the other paints yet. I have seen, I'm trying to remember who it was now. Was it Paul Spuddy Shaw, I think? on Facebook posted up some of his Mechanicum, and he'd been using the gemstone paints
Oh, right, yeah.
over the top of the silver and all that, and it comes out all lovely and shiny. Lovely and shiny. And part of me was thinking, if I didn't buy the airbrush, wanted to go the airbrush route, when I've said I'm doing my Stormcast with the Thousand Suns style, Heresy style painting, I was like, that could be an alternative option. But with the basic Stormcast, there's so much armour that it's just better to spray them. So I'll be doing it the Forge World-ish way.
Yeah, that sort of, you mean with that sort of bright red?
Yeah, it's basically spray them silver, wash them a bit, spray 2-3 coats of clear red over the top of it. That's to break it down.
Yeah.
And then you mix around how much, because they're like leaving parts of the model with less silver on, parts with highlighting it. Then mine's going to be a bit more basic than that, but that's the principle. And the gem paints could work if you were doing a smaller area. The gem paints can do that. So maybe a shoulder pad if you want a shoulder pad to be quite shiny.
Yeah, definitely. I think on smaller areas, then they probably would work quite well.
Yeah, so I haven't had a chance to play with those yet. Have seen the new brass, I think it was, Kev at a local shop was using that, and one coating coverage of black was pretty amazing. It was just on trim.
Brass has always been a bit of a tricky colour, isn't it?
Yeah, it was just on trim, so it's not on a large area, so it probably need more on a large area, but just on the trim. It was pretty impressive, actually. So that's something I need to have a little play with as well. And I had a look at the bases as well, and they seem to be the plastic moulded bases from G-Dub, and they seem to be pretty good.
Yeah, I think it's just for me that they're a massive time saver.
Yeah, at the end of the day, because I mentioned briefly that some people had some issues with the depth of them and everything else, but I'd paint them, I'd wash them, and I'd just touch on the highlights, and it wouldn't take long at all. And
yeah, I think for me, I do like trying to put something into the bases if I've got time. But if you just need to get something done, then it's hell of a lot easier. Yeah,
but it's also something done that's a step up, really, from just sanding a base as well.
Definitely, yeah.
So, in terms of time versus, or effort versus output, you're onto a winner. Of course, if you want to make them look stunning, you have to put more effort in, and that's always the case. But it's another one of those products which will get you to a certain level very quickly.
Yes, and we like those products.
Yeah, definitely, because even if you are going past that level, you can incorporate that and just save yourself time. Or if you're just a gamer who wants the models up looking as good as you can make them within a time scale, then it allows you to do that as well. So it's pretty good from where I'm sitting.
Definitely.
And I think that's about it. What we'll do is we'll go into a bit of a musical break. You may have noticed the music's changed. Just moving away into some non-royalty music. Just for various reasons. But hopefully you guys like it. If you really hate it, well, you might have an issue with that. Don't get me wrong, I'll miss the original kind of show's opening and little bits and pieces, but I think the new buffers work okay, and I'll be having a look around for some different ones as well. But we'll have one of those pieces now, and we'll come back with the news. Okay, into the news. So, what have we got going on? Forge World. The Crusade Imperialis book is out.
Yes.
Which is groovy. I haven't got mine back yet, because one of mine, the ribbon had stuck to a page and torn a bit off, so I've had to send it back and wait for them to get me one back. So I haven't had much of a chance to look at this, unfortunately. Sod's law in it, but...
Do we know if they've changed much in it? Have they updated any points values or anything like that?
The actual, like the main list, not a lot. A couple of additions, I think. The Knights list, you've now got the other nights in there as well. But there's not a huge amount of changes in it, no.
Okay.
So that one's pretty good. They also previewed the book as well, the Age of Darkness book, haven't they?
Yes. So that obviously we're hoping that's not going to be very far away.
No, well, the fact
they said.
Yeah, the fact they put the poster of it up, the fact that it's going to be available, the special edition and normal edition on the Forge World Open Day, and the fact that picture's come out so long before that, I really think it's going to be out the Monday afterwards.
Yes, I think so too.
And part of that's wishful thinking, because of allowing it for the event, and it does mean it will save a lot of hassle. But yeah, I think it will be out that Monday, because it also kind of kicks people. You know, some people will go and try and put it up on eBay for, £100 million or something.
Yes,
Because we're going to jump ahead, but the model released the weekend, the GW store only model.
Yes.
Someone put theirs up for £250 buy it now on eBay.
I saw exactly the same eBay thing, because once I bought my 2, I had a quick look and I thought, I wonder if anyone's putting these up on eBay yet. And I look and I saw that one, it just made me laugh.
Yeah, there wasn't a huge amount of bids even on the £30 starting ones. So who knows? I mean, I bought one for me, one for a friend who asked me to buy one. I actually got a couple of spares, which might be for people, but if they don't want them, I'll have to pass them on. So who knows? But yeah, £250. But if they release the book on the Monday, it does kind of kick those people a little bit, and they have done that before. So
yeah, and I like that method because obviously I'm not going, and I really, really want to get my hands on that book.
Mm.
So for me, that's perfect. But wait and see.
Absolutely, and we saw on the back we've got heavy support jet bikes, which could be just because you get all the heavy weapon options with the jet bikes anyway.
Yeah.
But it could be a new jet bike, no idea. And then we got the the super heavies, the Malkador tanks coming in. Anyway, we don't know the details of actually what's in the book or what's changed, so it's I think more people are worried about kind of looking at things like assault marines, breaches, that kind of thing, as to the changes that have gone on there.
Yeah, just to see if they've updated them slightly, made them a bit more.
Yeah, either made them better or turned their points down. You don't really mind what they do, just as long as they feel a bit more worth it on the table,
definitely.
To encourage people to buy them. That's the name of the game, isn't it?
End of the day, that's, I mean, Forge will know what sells and what doesn't, and if they want to push something, an easy way to fix it is by changing the points of what they do.
I've just remembered something I was meant to say in the intro. I got forwarded to a rather brilliant review of the show, in which case someone came up with a drinking game where every person listening had to pick a phrase, and I can't remember them now, and I won't be able to find the link quick enough. But there was, it is what it is, good stuff, and there was about 4 phrases, I say, and I'm quite tempted to say them all a lot, just in case someone took that advice.
Doing it as a drinking game.
Yeah, I'd feel bad if in the news someone was like, someone was admitted to hospital after playing a drinking game attached to a gaming podcast. But it was quite tempting. So forgive me if I say these terms a lot, but they help me convey what I want to convey. So there we go. It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Trust me, I know I'm saying them as well. People, every now and then I cringe when I say them because I realise I'm saying them a lot. What are you going to do, eh?
It is what it is.
Indeed. Okay, moving on. We have Model Masterclass bundles. So if you don't have the Masterclass books, you can buy them and loads of paints at the same time.
Quite handy if you're thinking, do you know what, I'm going to do this.
I'm sure they'll sell.
I've got an airbrush. I'm going to do this. I'm going to buy everything.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll sell the odd one.
Yeah,
but I mean, it looks good.
Is it a price saving?
I didn't
break it down in price, but
there might be a couple of quid. I doubt it's a huge amount. But yeah, it's cool. It's a little reminder that those books are there as well, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Reminder the paints are there if you don't use them already.
Yep. Some good colours in there.
Yes, well, certainly. In painting I ordered the wrong red, stupidly, so I'm waiting for my clear red to come through. But I've got some Word Bearers red sat here instead. I might be able to play a little bit more with my airbrush before it comes through. But yeah, and then we have Black Shield's transfers.
Yes, yeah.
Which, yeah,
were these previewed at one of the days?
Weekender? These have been around for a while.
Okay.
On preview, yeah. I think it was the Weekender, and
oh, really?
I might be looking to pick these up for my Space Wolves. Just because there's some kind of feral kind of, that kind of thing look to them, but they're not specifically wolfish, which is what I want for my Space Wolves. So it'll be interesting to see how they fit in that. I know there's a thread on 30k forums for them, and I assume there are for other transfers as well, but there's a thread for swapping, particularly with this Black Shield one. You've got 4 or 5 distinct styles.
Right.
For different, and they're supposed to be for different, Black Shield groups. Much like you do with the Knights, things like that. But, yeah, someone set up, a swap thread saying, I'm collecting this group, and I want all the skeletal Aquillas and things like that. So if you don't want them, you go and trade whichever ones you want with him.
That's a very good idea, actually, because you could do that with a lot of the transfers. I've got sheets of transfers where I've cut off all the ones that I wanted to use, and then got a big bundle of ones I know I'm never going to use. Yeah,
and it saves rather than putting them on eBay, going through that hassle. You can just shove them in an envelope and send them off to someone.
Definitely.
Yeah, as you say, yeah, and why not? Because, you thing is, you put these things to the side, and then 3 years later, you go, oh yeah, I've still got all of them.
Yeah.
And it's there's no point in keeping on to them, is there?
Definitely not, yeah.
Groovy. And we have, last but not least, Rubio.
Yes.
So he's finally out. It's awkward when you go to these things, you forget that they're not general release, because my Rubio's sat in front of me waiting for a bit of paint. But some people don't like the model.
It's the new style that seems to be very prevalent, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I've heard people talking about this. There's the odd model coming out in this style. I don't necessarily have an issue with it. Some people do. I think some people see it as moving away from the kind of core traditional heresy that I think there's a little bit of I was in this before you, they've changed things. I think there is a small group doing that. Some people just don't like the model, and that's fair enough, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
They have some people have the same issue with the in-store model as well. But, I mean, I don't. I must admit, almost every version of it I've seen this weekend has been modded in some way.
I've seen quite a few mods, but I must admit I really like the pose. I really like the way he's walking forward.
Yeah.
The Weekend model, and I love the weapon as well. The weapon's really unusual.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of weapon swaps and a lot of head swaps. But, yeah, that's fair enough. But I say I don't have an issue with it. I mean, he is another character standing with his foot on a rock. That's a thing, isn't it, I suppose? It happens.
I think it's the easiest way. I mean, they're meant to be on a battlefield, isn't it?
Yeah, heroic pose, one foot
Heroic,
up.
yeah, you've got to I mean, just to get that dynamism in the pose, you've got to have them walking or stepping on something just so you can get a bit of movement in the body.
Yeah, I would like it sometimes if it wasn't a bit of rock all the time. Because none of my bases...
I think you'll find this is a little bit of armour plate.
Oh, is it? I do apologise there. But there are a lot with rocks on, particularly through the Mechanicum, like the Secutors are standing on rocks.
Yes.
And I'm like, but my basing doesn't have any rocks on it.
Yeah, especially if you want to do like the new bases or something.
Yeah, it's like, I've got urban bases.
Got urban bases and there's a rocks stuck in the middle.
You might do get round it, I suppose. Yeah, it's just one of those things that you have to deal with. If you've got the right tools, get a good blade and you can cut them off easy enough if you're careful, sensible with it.
Like with this new one, it's not part of the model itself. It's not stuck to the leg.
Okay.
So you could quite easily think, well, with that one, I'll do something different.
Oh yeah, so it is. Haven't had a look at mine properly, but yeah, you could easily put something else under that, a gun, bolt gun or something, just to build up the height. But it's not, as you say, it doesn't have to be the issue with that, which is good. And that's about it for Forge World. We did have Angels of Caliban from Black Library. It was finally released. Of course, some people will have read it because it came out digitally. I'm about halfway through it. It's the lion being the lion and everything that entails. But it's looking good so far, which is all groovy.
Excellent.
And that's about it, really. I did hear, I probably should say, people who follow me on Twitter will know that I did hear that the weekend release was a trial of Forge World in stores, in that stores had been kind of talking about getting Forge World in, and it had been put off for a long while. So they kind of went, okay, well, we'll see how this goes, and then we'll make a decision. So I know some stores were selling out. Guildford sold out in 40 minutes, I think, of their 20 odd.
I heard a store sold out in 4 minutes. One store I heard of.
Yeah.
Yeah, but unfortunately that was mainly down to one person buying 13.
Oh yes, yeah, I did see a couple of issues of that as well. But it's down to store manager. The problem is the store manager sits in a position, particularly if he's unsure whether these things are going to sell or not. Someone comes in and says, "I want them all." If there are other people queuing and it's obvious, then that's a bit out of order. But
yes, yeah, and like you say, it could quite easily be they had maybe not spoken to anyone all week. No one's really shown an interest. One person walks in and says, "I want 13." You just bite their hand off.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. There you go.
At the end of the day, the managers, GW stores, it's run on a very sales basis. The more you sell, the higher bracket you move into, but then you've got to maintain sales, things like that. And the quantity of items they get is dependent on their sales bracket as well. So Tunbridge Wells and Canterbury Games Workshops, or Tunbridge Wells and Maidstone, I think, get roughly the same. Canterbury sells a bit more, so they get a few more. And it simply is that. So, yeah, and there's different... I didn't realise quite how many people at the Tunbridge Wells store play Heresy. Not necessarily people I want to play against a lot of the time, but all the kids are in there and they've all got, "Oh yeah, I played Primarchs all this time," and I'm like, "Oh blimey, there's quite a few of them." But yeah, so you don't know. I've never really seen them play Heresy in a store, but then I'm not in it a huge amount, to be fair.
Yeah,
but it's all exciting. Hopefully, it does sell well. Hopefully, we do get to see Forge World coming into store. It's not going to come into store in a huge way, but if the basic lines are there, if you're Spartan or a Sikaran, Mark III armour, Mark IV armour, that kind of stuff's in store, and you can pre-order the other bit or order the other bits for delivery to store, that's brilliant.
Even ordering delivery to store for me would be a massive leap.
Yeah.
Just being able to order the odd couple of bits you need and have them delivered to a store without any postage, I think would make a massive difference to most people's hobby.
Yeah, and there's people out there who are going to be like, "Well, I live so far away from the store," and it's like, well, that's unfortunate. You won't benefit from it, but a huge number of people will benefit from it. So it means things like, I've just ordered 2 paints from Forge World because I really need them. So it's like, okay, that's £7.50 goes to whatever it is, £7 goes to £8 something. It's like, oh, that's frustrating. But I could have done that to store, picked it up on my way home from work. It's cool. You don't mind ordering smaller bits then.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
You don't get this whole, there's threads on our forum every now and then. I'm doing a Forge World order. Who wants something so we can get it to 250 quid?
Yes.
And then it's got to go to someone's house, and then he's got to divide it up, and he's got to collect the money, and it's like, ooh, it's not a major issue, but it's a bit of a pain. But we shall see how that goes forwards. Fingers crossed. There's plenty they can do with that.
It'd be great if it is a test, and let's see what they do. I mean, there's such great things happening in the hobby at the moment.
Yeah, the other thing it might do is it might show how many of the regular gamers are playing Heresy or interested in Heresy.
Yes.
Because GW, I'm sure they have some ways of working it out, but at the end of the day, Forge World has a different account system to Games Workshop. So even ordering online, I might have the same email, but that's about all that's the same. They might not be able to tell that the same people are ordering things. So, who knows? Who knows? We shall have to wait and see. But there we go. That's it for the news. Let's head off and we'll talk about bringing some bling to your gaming experience. Okie dokie, we're going to get into the main topic of the show, which is how to, or items and things that can improve your playing experience, if you will. We're not going to talk about terrain because I think terrain's its own subject, really.
Yeah,
don't you?
definitely.
Yeah. So because that actually affects the gameplay. This is things and bits and pieces you might purchase around the actual gameplay itself. So we've got a little bit of a list that we put together. I'm sure we're going to miss stuff, and
as we do.
Yeah, and we'll roll through it and kind of see where it leads. The first thing I was thinking of is your playing surface itself. So you've got your terrain, and that might be painted. Kind of, you hope it is, but sometimes it isn't. Is it? Let's face it.
It's often spray black.
Yeah, absolutely. At our club, we're getting some stuff commission painted. We're lucky in we can be kind of, compared to a lot of clubs, we're cash rich. So,
That's useful.
Yeah, we're making the most of it while we can, as it were. So you got your terrain, but you can, the popular thing now is the gaming mats.
Yes, they've sort of, I mean, I think they're quite a new thing, aren't they, really, of the last year or so?
Well, they've been around a while, but they've really taken off for miniature gaming in last year or so. Things like Blood Bowl, their own pitches were fairly commonplace, and some other games, smaller games, tended to be. Maybe there was a price issue before. We've got like the big companies that are doing it now. I say big, but the leaders, people like Gamer EU and the Fat Mats,
yes,
which is the one that I got a Fat Mat for giving away last year at the event, which was fantastic, absolutely fantastic. So these ones are high quality mouse mat style material, so they don't sheen, models don't slide across them. They're soft enough that when you roll dice they don't ping off, things like that.
Yeah, so I mean, as benefits, I mean, for me as well, like you get a lot of the textured boards that you can buy from GW and Forge World. But I always find, especially if people put sand on them, I find there's a real risk of damaging your models or things as well. Things get knocked over.
Yeah.
A nice soft surface.
Yeah, so you've got a chance of breaking models or chipping paint off models with those. Also, depending on, like, if you over sand them, they can be a real pain in the arse.
Yes.
That's happened at our club before. And you're also stuck with whatever you've done. Whereas if you've got a variety of mats, an individual might not necessarily have a variety of mats, but maybe a club does. Then one day you can be playing on a Martian type surface, one day you can be playing an industrial hive, and one day an urban sprawling, smashed up city. So there's options in that. And that's going to depend on where you go for your designs, because there's loads of designs. Oh, we should say, I mean, there are other types of mats, slightly less, slightly cheaper and, more, you're getting what you pay for them, as it were. In the mat is less thick, less durable maybe, or it's shiny and slidey, things like that as well. But these ones, once you've decided to get that, I say there are 2 or 3 companies out there. Fat Mat and Gamer Mat EU are the 2 big ones. I really love Fat Mats personally. And it's a case of looking for a design you want. And that could fit your army as well. So you could choose, if you play at home a lot and your army's based Martian style, you get a Martian style mat.
Yeah,
sorted.
definitely. And obviously they're quite handy as well, because you can roll them up and store them quite easily.
Very easily.
Boards can be a bit of a pain, can't they?
Yeah, and they don't, like the old GW felt mat, which used to rub, and the grass used to come off, and then it used to curl up, and you wouldn't be able to lay it flat. These ones, they roll out, they stay flat because of the weight of them. And
Yes, yeah, they don't sort of like kink up.
No, absolutely. And then you can get the ones that are fairly, I don't want to say plain, but they're kind of an outdoor like field or whatever landscape they are, but they're very subtle. And then you can get ones that have got a lot more detail on them as well. I mean, you obviously move to the urban areas, they've got streets and things like that. Sometimes with those ones, you can feel a bit restricted by the streets. You don't want to put buildings across streets, things like that.
Yes,
So,
then your terrain layout gets a bit affected by it all.
yeah, so it could become a little samey. Some people love it, some people don't. That's something that, you have to look at yourself. But some people really hate the 3D elements of them. So maybe craters are on the map. And, obviously a crater has a 3D element to it. And so for some people that doesn't really fit, but it's purely a case of looking through, going for whatever suits your needs.
Yeah, definitely.
I know that, let's say at the club we're looking at a few, and certainly one that can fit Age of Sigmar and Infinity and 40k. There's less of those that can cover a wide variety, but there are the odd ones there. The big thing with these is the price. I think you're looking at about £55-ish. Which is not cheap.
No, but it's not outlandish.
No, exactly. I mean, again, if you're buying one for yourself, that's a mat that's going to last you a very long time. So £55 isn't a huge amount, really. And they are quality. They do last, as we say. You look after them and they'll do you well. I don't advise spilling drinks on them, but I'm sure if you wipe it up quick, you'll be all right.
I would imagine they're quite sort of waterproof-ish. Thinking of the material that they are, that sort of...
Yeah, so, I mean, when we're going through these kind of things, I would try and keep drinks away from mine because I'm spending 55 quid on something. It's as simple as that, And even when things clean up, sometimes, particularly alcohol, people like to have a drink as they play. You can leave it a bit sticky or whatever. You don't want your models getting involved in that anyway, do you?
No, sticky model syndrome, we don't want that.
No, absolutely not. So yeah, that is the mats. I don't think there's much more to say on them. I think they are really good. Fingers crossed we're going to see some more at the event.
Yes.
And I've actually seen some people with really themed armies. There's a guy on the Warhammer scene called, I'm trying to remember his name now. It's gone out the top of my head. Typical. Try to think of his name. Steve Foot, that's the one. And he has this really awesome converted undead army, and the whole army's like crocodile with proper Sotek themed. And he got a mat just so, and with Age of Sigmar at the moment, there's lots of scope for story driven. So he puts his mat down, he's made enough terrain pieces for both players. And that's it. You're on that mat playing that story. So it's quite immersive.
Oh, cool.
Which is really good. So there's that side of it as well. But that's mats. Moving on from there, should we jump on to Forge World's favourite thing recently?
Yes, their big pet project.
Some dice.
Yes, dice. Now, you can buy a lot of different types of dice, can't you, really?
You can indeed. And in fact, people get very funny about dice.
Yes.
So from people I know who will only try and use casino dice because they feel that they roll the fairest with the least amount of kind of, slant towards one number or another.
Right.
To people, yeah, there's been studies on this, and the theory is that by taking out material to do pips or etching or whatever, you're actually reducing the weight of that face of the dice.
It must be very minute.
Yeah, people have claimed to have done tests of thousands and thousands of rolls, and even then, very, very little was seen to be kind of.
Was it random by any chance?
Yeah, I mean, it was one numbers was slightly higher than the other number, but that's what you expect. You don't expect any of those kind of tests to be fully 100% down the line how you'd expect them to turn out. And also as well, we're playing a game. We're not gambling with these dice. Is it all right if one dice tends to roll slightly more than the other. Most of the time you don't notice it. You might have perceptions that one dice will always roll sixes. So I always...
And you might have a lucky colour set of dice.
I have 2 USA dice that I got when I was out at Adepticon. And every now and then when I need a 6, I reach for a USA dice. And it seems to come up on a 6, like slightly more than it should. But I could tell you, I notice that dice when I'm rolling big buckets of them. When it doesn't come up with a 6. So I'm like, oh, it let me down.
Well, I have something similar. I have black and I have white dice, and the black dice roll high and the white dice roll low. So, if dependent on what I'm rolling for,
Is
I'll be
that
like, right, it's time to get the white dice out on a leadership test.
so? Is that cheating?
Well, no, but I think it's completely psychosomatic.
Yeah, I think 99% of these issues are psychosomatic. The thing about a symbol, particularly on a dice, is or on a die, is that it's different. So it will stick in your head every time that comes up. And when that's, old school, we've talked before that it used to be on the 1 all the time. And I believe that's because it's one symbol. And it used to be a case of, keep it nice and stop people getting confused. There's one symbol, put it on the 1.
Yeah.
Now people want to see their symbols on the 6s and, attribute it to something good happening.
Yes.
But when you see that coming up, particularly when it comes up in that big moment, you attribute an extra kind of meaning to that value. And so when it happens again, oh, I can't believe that dice done it again, you're filthy dice. Where a lot of the time they do just even out.
Yes, indeed. Do you remember, I think Forge World they gave some away in bags where they had an Imperial Aquila on one side and Eye of Horus on the other.
Yeah, one of the early weekenders.
And it was a case of, well, which one is the 6 and which is the 1?
Yeah, and that's why I never roll those dice.
Yeah.
The idea behind that being if you're a traitor, the Horus symbol can be the 6 and the Imperial symbol can be the 1. But frankly, it's
open to a little bit of shenanigans, I'd say.
Yeah, but I think most people know, like, the kind of people they're playing as to whether shenanigans get involved or not.
Yeah.
I have thrown away all my dice with symbols on a 1 on them. And I've been to an event where they gave away dice with symbols on a 1 on them, and I just pass them straight over to someone else. When I roll dice, all my symbols are on 6s if I've got symbols on the dice. That way I can go through and I don't have to sit and think, oh, that one's a thing, that one's a thing. And it's more for the opponent because it's clear.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, it is one of those things. Some people hate club dice. Heel and Hammer, Warhammer podcast. They have Wayne on there has a huge thing about club dice never being fair, always coming up. I don't know. I've seen crazy normal dice happen. I don't necessarily believe it's a major issue, particularly if everyone's using them.
Yeah,
like,
I don't believe that any type. Well, I don't believe that club dice are going to be luckier than any other type of dice.
Yeah, there is some kind of belief that, and I'm sure there might be the odd case where they do come up ever so slightly more as being higher, but it's minimal. And at the end of the day, we're not playing for tournaments or anything like that, so it's less of an issue. I mean, I've been at tournaments where people have used cheaty dice.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, using them on a detective inspector, or I think he was, or certainly an inspector from Manchester Police, who's had cheaty dice used on him 3 times before. That didn't go down well.
Oh dear, oh dear. Yeah. So what happened in that scenario?
That was actually at a tournament. This guy, the guy who was cheated, picked up the dice and rolled them again to show that they were always going to come up like that. The other guy claimed innocence, claimed the dice were in his bag and didn't realise it. But at the end of the day, he was using dice that were loaded. So he was chucked out of that tournament, and it became known on the scene that he had these dice. And some people gave him some advice and said, I mean, he took some time out from the scene. He came back to the scene. And it was a case of, look, if someone tells you that they want you to use their dice, you're just going to have to do it. Or I think he just bought a GW, like the little cube, and
Yeah.
and he only used them, kind of thing, just to show that he wasn't using specific dice or anything like that. So, it's one of those things. If you are involved with that, whether you're innocent or not, you're going to have to kind of accept that you might have to work a little bit. I mean, there's been other cases. There's the gel dice in Australia, where you can, they got a viscous fluid in them, and you can either tap it down or you can leave them resting on a face, and it will allow the fluid to act as a weight.
Oh,
But I mean, that tends to be tournament. Generally, you're playing clubs. I've heard some amazing stories about people cheating in club games as well, but I think you tend to realise that as a club, and you just don't play these people if they won't admit it. Because I wouldn't.
Yeah.
If I knew someone cheated, I wouldn't. Just would say no thanks. Don't want to play you.
Yeah, especially. I mean, yeah. If you know someone's is known for it as well, and they're getting funny dice out, then you'd instantly question it, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and there's ways of doing things. I mean, maybe this is another subject, but I've seen issues with people who've misread rules, and it's hard to prove whether that's intentional or not. But I've seen someone who's done it enough times to understand that there was an issue going on, and there are ways of questioning people. There's ways of, doing things like, oh, can I just check your book? Because if that's a rule, then I need to, maybe I haven't got this right, and I need to have a look at some other rules. I mean, with heresy, chances are you've got the same rule book they have, so you can just check it yourself.
There's not an opportunity for not knowing their codex.
No, I had an issue down at Brighton in a Warhammer tournament, and this kid was like, oh no, this rule's like this. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's not, because my best mate plays that army and he doesn't do that. He's like, oh no. So can I have a look at your book? And he said no. So I just turned around to my best mate. Can I borrow your book? Yeah, sure. I'm like, I'm going to find out the answer, but that's a different thing. But yes, the dice. So, the loaded stuff is what it is, but you've got all the club dice, you've got all the podcast dice. I want to get some for this podcast. Loads of podcasts have dice, loads of other groups and things. And then Forge World have got their own. It's hard not to go and buy them in.
With your Legion symbol on, it's very tempting, isn't
to be honest, with the flipping World Eater symbol on, it's very tempting. I'm just like, I want loads of them, please. Because they are amazing. And you can get your own made up. It's not, it's not cheap, but it's not prohibitively expensive to get a few dice made up for yourself. So you can do those kind of things. And if you've got a symbol people like, put it online, say, I'm going to get these dice made up. Anyone else interested? And you'll find that people jump on it, and then you're sharing the cost then. So there's all kinds of things you can do with the dice. I love the big 16 mil. Yeah, the 16 mil dice are the ones I like.
Yeah, I think big dice are quite cool. I mean, the only dice I really use are the cheap GW ones. I don't really go into
dice
or anything. It's just convenience for me.
I like the club dice, and I've collected loads. Some of them tell a story as well. So I've got some Northern Irish dice from when I played for their ETC team in a warm-up event. So whenever I roll those dice, luck of the Northern Irish, immediately I've got that connection back to there. Things like that, or specific events, or people that, like those America dice, are always going to remind me of Adepticon. Things like that. I mean, you go crazy. GW did that whole metal dice set years ago.
I remember complaints about that.
You don't want to be rolling them on a table because everyone's models are moving. Because Dan uses them as turn markers, and inevitably someone comes up and rolls one. Just because they're there, and that's what people do when they're watching games. And then all of a sudden you see these models shaking across the table, or it hits a model and chips a bit.
Takes a chunk out of it.
Yeah, or just squashes a model underneath it. But yeah, you've got all that kind of stuff, which is cool. Linked in with that, there's also digital dice rolling.
Indeed. One thing as well I just want to say about dice. Numbers or dots?
Either, just as long as it's easy to read.
Because numbers drive me. When someone rolls a load of numbers, I just don't like it.
Next time we play, it's all I'm bringing with me. Okay, well, sorry about that. Just another hazard of recording. As you know by now, I have to be on call because it's a job. So we're off. It was nothing important, and we're back to recording, which is good. And we were just about to jump into electronic dice.
Indeed we were, yes.
Essentially, something in general I'm not a fan of.
Are you not?
No. We play D&D a bit now, got back into that, and I've never been a major fan of it there. The only advantage for D&D is sometimes you're adding up a lot of dice.
Okay.
And so it's easier just to do that. But when you're just looking for a result on each individual dice, I just prefer having dice in my hand, throwing them.
Yeah, I think there is something therapeutic about dice and rolling them. It's all part of the experience, isn't it, really?
Yeah, and sometimes people can feel cheated by an electronic device more than rolling it. See, because there's a bit of disconnect there as well.
Yeah.
But yeah,
don't trust the machines.
No, but some people do it. You know, not very often. I don't think.
I tell you what I do. I mean, I've got an app on my phone. It's a basic. I think it's a rolling app. But I use it just more for probability than anything else. So if I'm thinking, if I use this and this, would that be any good? And I'll just do several test rolls if I'm out and about somewhere. And just see, oh, okay, yeah, that worked. Well, that didn't work. And look at it on that sort of frame.
Yeah, so for Theory Hammer, if you're out and about, and some people can look at odds and work out what they're doing. Some people need to think, hold on, if I roll 12, what am I going to get? And then what am I going to get? And, you know, people's brains work differently. So some people have seen a number of people do that kind of thing. Or it's just the old thing of, you see them in stores sometimes going, how does this work? And they pick up dice and roll them. So being able to do that on the move. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
I mean, there are loads of dice rolling apps. GW have their own dice rolling app. So you can add as many dice in as you take them away and things like that. Which, as I said, I've never used for that purpose. But on it, they do have a scatter dice.
Yeah, I think that's very useful.
Yeah, so the idea is you place your phone. Mark at the club decided to place his huge iPad down. He's got the big iPad.
The one for giants.
Yeah, and he's like, I can't put it down. I'm like, no, you can't. So you put your phone as close as possible. There are a number of issues with the scatter dice. One is it generally rolls quite far away from where you are.
Yes. And
two, perception from where you're sitting can depend on your view of where that arrow's aiming. So
yes,
first,
yeah. Sometimes you see people go, no, it's not going that way.
Yeah, I think we talked about this before. And some people are better at it than others as well. But, I mean, even if you're using dice, I say get up, get over the top of that die as much as possible. But you put the app down, you tap the button to roll the scatter die, and then it comes up with a line. If you've rolled a hit, you get an actual green line, and you can actually move that die around the screen, so you can move it as close to your model as your screen is. Obviously, you don't move your phone because you can shift it. But bearing in mind, how often do you use a scatter die in games? I mean, it's a GW thing. So, you know, and even in 40k, some armies just don't use it. You build an army.
I think I use it a fair deal in 30k. But I don't know if it's the army makeup more than anything else.
Yeah, if you don't use drop pods and you don't happen to have artillery or artillery that works like, you know, with templates, and it can be done. I see, you know, I use it a little bit for grav templates more than anything else. You know, and sometimes I play people and they're hardly using it at all. But my problem is I've got a big bag of dice. And you try and find that one scatter die.
Yeah, that's true.
It's never in the pile of dice you put out. And then you're hunting around for it, and then you leave it somewhere, or your person over the other side picks it up. So I really like that app. Just put it down and go.
Yeah, I think they're great.
Yeah, as I say, for actual dice rolling, I'm not sold on it. But for that, I mean, if you've got, it can be. You might not have a surface. Like some of the surfaces, like the Realm of Battle, the City one, is not good for rolling dice on.
Yeah, that's an awful dice trap, that board, isn't it?
Yeah, so some people might then decide to use a few more electronic dice. What I actually do is I've got an old cigar box, which my granddad had turned into a pen holder. So I cut all that out, and I've got a nice cigar box, which I roll dice into now. It's got felt on the bottom of it. so they don't bounce or make too much noise, because I've seen people with dice cups made out of Pringles tubes and things like that, and it's just
Very noisy.
horrible noise. It just winds me up. Or even the hard plastic ones make a lot of noise. I've got a GW, I've got the Warhammer World like leather one dice cup, and I've also got my dice box as well, so I can roll into that box, know they're going to be flat, and also know that most of the time they're not going to fly everywhere.
Yes, I think that's the other thing, isn't it? The dice pinging all over the table, and I'm a bit of a enthusiastic roller. And sometimes they just go flying.
What's funny is I get my dice box out and I'm using it, and I try and put the dice box in view of my opponent, because there is a little bit of a lip on it, and sometimes they feel like they've got to use it, and I always say, no, you don't have to use it. It's just do what you normally do. It's fine. I just do this. And then some people at the club particularly will try and use it just to wind me up, because they're like, oh, dice roll better in that. And then, their dice generally do when they use my dice rolling box. So I try and snatch it away before they can do it. But yeah, there's no pressure on anyone to use it. But if someone insisted on using it, then that wouldn't necessarily be an issue either. But it's all good.
Yes, definitely.
It's all good. Okay, so going from, dice towers. Is this something you're familiar with?
Yeah, sort of. I must admit, I've seen a couple of them about, but I'm not super sold on them.
No, they tend to be used in games that require less dice. So a lot of Blood Bowl players I've seen use them, or board gamers. So the idea is you've got a construct, a very simple construct, plastic or wood, and it's just a tower with an open-ended bottom that sits out, that collects the dice, and in that tower you've just got some slanted sections that the dice bounce off. So you can't see what's going on in there. Some of them are see-through, but you're going to get that dice bouncing around in there.
So it's got like a completely random dice roll.
Yeah.
No risk of someone... I've never known anyone be able to throw their dice in a particular manner that they get result.
You can have sliding, you can have dropping, and things like that. And when I used to get really annoyed with my dice in Blood Bowl, I'd go, I'll use a re-roll, pick up the dice, and then go to roll it, and I'd half slide it. And it's completely unintentional, because it would always come up at the roll I just made. So it always ruined me. And I'm like, no, roll it properly. But, once you've done that and it's come up with a bad result for you, you can't really turn around and say, I didn't roll that properly.
Yeah, exactly.
But, yeah, so Dice Towers is something, as I say, people like games like Infinity, which tend to use one or two dice all the time, if that, I think. I think it's usually just one dice at a time. But, Blood Bowl, where you've only got 3 maximum, things like that, they can be really useful for. But I have seen some people use them in larger games. They do tend to make a bit of a racket, because you get the dice going through the whole thing. Yeah, and one of the guys at the club who used them used to always put it on a wooden surface. It would just be straight onto the table. So you put the dice in, they'd clatter through it, then they'd hit the table, make loads of noise, and bounce out of the little holder anyway. And then it's like, oh dear. So you want something kind of under there to soften it as well. But yeah. There's them.
Can we pause for a sec?
Yep.
Hold on.
And moving on to measuring accessories, should we call them? So there isn't much. I don't think there's a huge amount you can do past the traditional tape measure, but there are a couple of things.
I mean, you've got your tape measure, and you've sometimes got those sticks, haven't you, that GW like to provide. And sometimes I think the tape measure can be a little bit dangerous.
First off, get a decent tape measure.
Yes.
They're really not expensive. Don't go to Games Workshop and get a tape measure. I mean, you can, but you're going to be paying a lot more than if you go down the local hardware store.
Yeah, and don't get one with an aggressive retractor.
Absolutely, yeah, because you'll take skin and models and everything with it. Seen plenty of times models get knocked over when the old tape measure gets retracted.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so you go and get one that holds as well. I think they're quite useful if you've got one like that. But as you said, there's the sticks, the pointing sticks you get with GW. There's a few other little bits and pieces as well, which sometimes they just fit better between scenery, between models. That's also another problem. You've got, most tape measures like an inchish wide, aren't they?
Yeah.
And you've got the big piece of metal on the end, and then you're trying to feed that through a window, and you're trying not to curve it too much. But certainly that's where the sticks can come in sometimes to feed through those gaps.
Yeah, and I think they do have a use for that, definitely.
Yeah, one thing I certainly had one. I think Dan at the club had one as well. There was a guy who used to do a lot of shows, and he made inch-long cylinders with a screw on the end. So you could screw them in up to 12 inches. He sold them in like packs of 12. So you could have a 12-inch long, a foot-long measure. But then you could unscrew as many as you need to for like measuring a specific distance.
Oh, right, okay.
So that's quite useful. Where you go about getting them outside of, this guy used to do the local shows around the southeast, the gaming shows. And that's where we picked some. I think Dan picked his up, meeting him at a tournament somewhere. But they were quite useful. So when you've got a 3-inch charge, you can put that down, particularly for Warhammer, back in the day, between the units. You can put that down and actually measure specifically. If you can roll it in that gap, it's further than 3 inches, which is really cool. I have seen again in Warhammer, there's particularly the old one, there was a lot of measuring of an inch, and it was all square bases. So having a 25mm base on a clear flying stand to use to measure gaps.
Oh, right, yeah.
Was quite good as well. So if you do want something like maintaining that inch gap, then that's quite good. You put it on the flying stand, you can reach it in without affecting models, and you can make sure that, that you've got certain distances right. Slightly less useful with 40k, 30k, but there still are some uses that you could have for that as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely worth maybe thinking about. And along with kind of measuring, for me, comes laser pointers.
Yes.
Because, and actually learning how to use them. So we're talking about these small cylindrical pens that people sometimes use to try and blind pilots and all that. And you can get the ones which just have they just point the laser out the end and make one long line from the device itself, or you can get the ones that shine a straight line.
Yes, I've seen those a few times, and I had a few friends that bought those.
Yeah, I kind of tend to prefer them. One thing you must remember, I saw someone doing this, I can't remember whether it was at the club or not. They were shining it down from above with the one that makes a line, and they were like, look, he can see because the line goes over my model and your model. And I'm like, yeah, but it kind of, there is a piece of terrain in the way. So actually, from the top down, you're just not seeing the fact there's a huge wall in the way. So you do have to remember to go check.
I think personally they're extremely useful for sides of vehicles.
Yeah, they are. And that's where in Warhammer they were really useful for arcs of visibility and charges and things like that. But certainly, yeah, your arcs, your vehicles, that it's pretty hard to kind of deny that you're in a front or a side when you put that down and it shows clearly.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, because it can be a little bit ambiguous sometimes, can't it?
Yeah, and again, sometimes it's just perspective. What I often see when people are looking for line of sight is they get behind the model that is the target, and they look, and it's like, well, actually, it sounds weird, but that's a very different viewpoint.
Yes.
You want to get behind the model that's shooting, and years of playing Necromunda taught me that it's never quite the same. So, when you're looking for whether that model's half, or what parts of that model you can see, obviously, it's difficult anyway because it's a 28mm model, you're trying to get your eye behind part of it.
Yes, and sometimes terrain is really not your friend in those scenarios.
And you're not quite in line, and you go around the other side and you're like, dude, all I can see is your pistol, I can't shoot you. And it's obvious from one way. But yeah, so always get behind the model that's shooting. Just a tip. And those lasers, you can get them now at Element and all that pretty cheap, to be honest. They're not expensive like they were back in the day.
Back in the day.
back in the day. But yeah, so I still think there's a use for them.
Yeah, I think that it's a very useful. I think if you go into a tournament or something where you're going to be playing a lot of games, that's probably an essential bit of kit, I'd say.
It's certainly very useful. It's one of those things where it just helps stop a disagreement, and I don't mean a disagreement in that tournament sense of a disagreement, but in that genuine kind of like, you can't see them, why are you shooting them, which can sometimes make you think the other person's being a right bleep, where they're actually not. They just honestly believe they can see.
Yeah.
And you honestly believe they can't, and sometimes it's not till you get that measure out and go, oh, actually, I was way wrong there. That, it can just stop some of that bad feeling as well. That can grow up even in friendly games.
Yeah.
Because we all want to win to a certain extent.
Exactly, yeah.
And they say half the time the arguments I've had with friends and, years of playing a game have been over the most stupid things. And it's not when someone's been trying to take advantage of someone, because generally we don't, or generally we make sure we put that person in their place. It's been over, no, I can do this. No, you can't. Oh, yes, I can. And then, because then you feel like someone's trying to stop you from winning or whatever. It's all a bit funny, isn't it? But yeah, those laser pointers are really good. Remember GW did their targeting one a while ago?
Yes, I do remember.
That wasn't as great. It's make sure, because the ones you get now, I mean, they're only just bigger than the battery you put in them.
Yeah,
so,
they're quite small, aren't they?
Yeah, and you want something about that size because you want to be able to move it around the battlefield. It's no good having something the size of a tape measure which can't fit in behind models and all that. I mean, I've seen people make their own lasers for doing it with as well, which I don't advise, because at the end of the day, lasers are dangerous. And at least these ones we buy have some sort of safety kind of standards that they live up to.
No, I do agree, yeah. You've got to be a little bit careful.
Excellent stuff. We'll jump on to templates. So,
yes.
I mean, what did we use in 30k? We got the big templates as well, haven't we? So you've got a whole range of size of templates. And particularly with grav weapons now, you're leaving templates on the table, or should be?
You should be, and I think that's one of the most probably forgotten about rules, because often people just need to pick that template up again and use it.
Yeah, so I'm sure if anyone who's been playing the game a while will have some templates lying around. I tend to go through stages of having none, because they've gone somewhere to having 4, and not really understanding how I got 4. But it does happen sometimes. But yeah, I always found that, particularly with the small templates, playing Mechanicum, a lot of grav, that I'm needing to put them down, but I'm needing to use them, and you count it up. Remember, you've got to make 3 dangerous terrain tests next turn.
Yeah.
And it's, you forget, they forget. It is, it's what it is. But there are loads of companies out there now. 10 years ago, there were none. But now everyone's got laser cutting things, so you can get wooden templates, which I don't really like personally, but get the perspex ones. Perspex.
Yeah, you can get ones customised, don't you?
Yeah, you can get your gaming club logo on it. You can get them done to your own. If you're just doing it for you, you get them done to your own army. You can get events on them. You can get all kinds of stuff. And also, when they're clear perspex, you can see through it. There's a reason the Games Workshop ones are like that. If you put too much writing on it, sometimes you get a bit confused as to what's underneath it. That kind of stuff as well. But well worth having, and it's
I think so.
It's well worth just having them. And to be honest, if you're a gaming club and you're going to put in an order like that, it's probably going to be cheaper than buying replacements at GW anyway.
Yeah, more than likely.
So, I mean, there's literally just so many places for that kind of thing now. You can get whatever colours you want, much like dice, really. Just get them personalised as much as you want. You could even get, like, dangerous terrain tests written on them for 30k. Grav, dangerous terrain etched into them.
Yeah, probably wouldn't be a bad shout. At least you'd remember to leave it there.
And the other thing you can do then is you could get your name etched on it. And that way, it's less likely to be accidentally taken away. Or if it is taken away, someone will go, "Oh shoot, that's Greg's. I'll drop that back off to him." Because when you're like, "I've got 2 small green templates. okay, I'll say something at next club meeting, forget, or no one listens to you or whatever. They're like, oh, I'll keep it till someone asks for it. And then, someone's going, I had to go and buy some new templates because I lost my So there is
Very
that.
easily done, isn't it? Especially when everyone's using the same sort of GW
Yeah.
type stuff.
Yeah, it's understandable. And so it's just something from being in the hobby this long that it's happened to me plenty of times. The bigger templates, that's a different story. Whether you would get them out beyond the 5-inch, the explosion ones, yeah, well, I mean, why not? If you don't have one and you want one, get it out and use it. I tend to use, once you get to that distance, I'm tending to measure the distance with the tape measure.
Yes, yeah, definitely, I agree.
I find that a bit easier. Also, because of terrain, sometimes you just cannot get those templates anywhere near the model. It's like hovering about 2 foot off the board, and you're going, I think he's in, and you suddenly realise you're looking at an angle which, is about 4 inches out. But,
and then the template is 2 foot off the table, and you're then trying to get above that template.
Yeah, and then you drop it. Oh yeah, it's a nightmare. So I tend to, when my super heavies blow up, just like measure the radius and go from there. But hey ho.
Hey ho.
Indeed. Wound counters, custom markers.
Yes, I think you see a lot of these in other games. I think certainly like in Malifaux and things like that. I think you see them a hell of a lot more.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of games now that use abilities which affect each other. Age of Sigmar's gone that way. You're putting buffs on other units. There is a certain amount of it in 40k. I remember when 7th edition came out and 40k podcasts were like, oh my goodness, there's so much bookkeeping. And I'm like, really? You have to note down about 5 things? From playing Warhammer, it's nothing. It's nothing. It doesn't slow the game down at all once you're used to it. But yeah, you've got, wound counters, particularly for monstrous creatures, things like that. You've got objectives. If you haven't gone and bought the objective dice.
Or made your own or whatever.
Made your own, yeah. You've got vehicle destruction, so noting off that you're immobilised or what have you. And you name it, there's a lot of other things, whether psychic powers are in use, is the amount of times I've seen people go, oh, that unit you shot up last turn was invisible. It's like, oh well, so all those kind of things. So again, there's lots of companies now with these kind of the laser cutters and whatever that you can make perspex tokens, wooden tokens, little plastic tokens. There's loads of stuff like that, and you can again customize them or go and find them. The beauty of 40k is it's so big a property that a lot of people cater towards 40k, so you can go and find those. One thing that came up through Kickstarter last year was the mod cubes.
Cubes? Okay. I didn't see those.
Right, so these are cubes, as it sounds. They're like large dice,
okay.
So 6 sides, and then you can go to modcube.myshopify.com, and you buy the cubes, and then you buy the sets of tokens that slide in the cubes, which make the dice.
Oh, okay.
So I'm looking at Sci-Fi Infantry or Sci-Fi Vehicles. Here we go. You've got 6 different stunned, weapon destroyed, flat out. It doesn't say destroyed, it just says weapon something. You've got 8 of those, and then you've got 5 more. Oh no, there's 2 more as well. So smoke and wreck. And you've got 8 of those tokens, and then you've got 4 more where you get 4 of those tokens. So you're getting a lot of tokens, and the dice, the mod cubes themselves come in a pack of 8. So then you just set these mod cubes up as you want them, with whatever size you want them. And then you can keep those also in a bag with them, just in case you want to swap out during the game or whatever. They're not necessarily cheap. I think $14 just for the cubes. And about $14 for the token sets. But again, it comes down to how much do you want to use it. But certainly that kind of thing's an option.
Definitely.
because at the end of the day, you just buy a new set of tokens, and those 8 cubes can be used for something else. So you got, there's a lot of potential in something like that. If you've got an army where you know you're specifically going to use like you only need certain results, then you can do what Ben Curry's done with Age of Sigmar. There are 6 scenery types in Age of Sigmar, and he's worked out the 6 like major buffs and negatives on units. And you can buy a set of dice for each of them, and it's literally just he got them done the same way you would get normal dice done, and he sells them on for Age of Sigmar. Now they're Age of Sigmar ones, but there's no reason why you couldn't make your own and do that for 40k, 30k. So having particularly vehicles, everyone's trying to was that vehicle immobilised, or was it just stunned, or was it?
Yeah, they're the ones that can often be a bit.
Yeah, did I destroy the weapon on that one?
What did I do to that vehicle? Because their vehicles are always a pain.
Yeah, was it that one or that one? So something like that. And it just comes down to how much money you want to spend, how good you want it to look, and what kind of, whether you favour dice or tokens or what have you. But those mod cubes seem to do quite well. I think they're a bit rich for my blood.
Yeah, I would probably agree.
I would maybe look at going to someone who does the perspex kind of, cutting to individual needs and something like that. I would think would be my way of doing it, because I wouldn't need too much. I'm used to, when I play, wound counters before we move on. I mean, there's loads you can use. I've seen people use the little gemstone type things, little bits of cardboard. You can buy like little hearts, like on card in the shape of hearts. People use them. What I really like, and I'm too lazy to do, is you can buy packs of skulls, and you can buy ones as beads, that go on, like if you're making, people make necklaces or a bracelet. So they're hollow. There's a hollow hole to feed them on. And then you have a bit of metal poking up out the base of the model, and you just slide those wound tokens off as they come. So it's actually moving with the model, so you don't leave them behind when you move in your movement phase.
Yeah, or the problem with dice, isn't it? People pick them up.
People pick them up. Yeah, I tend to use, I've got my 16mm dice, and I've got a few other sized dice in the bag. So I tend to pick out the small dice and use them as wound markers if I'm doing that. But yeah, there's a whole different variety of ways. If you not, I would say most people aren't going to model on a system of making wounds. But when I play, I get my book out. I've got a little gaming book. I write down who I'm playing, what we're using, just out of habit as much as anything else. But it's really good if you're going to an event to write someone's name down.
Yes.
Because you play for 2 hours and then you go, I can't remember your name because my memory is useless. But I can just look down and go, oh yeah, it's, okay, Jeff. Cool. Good game, Jeff. It just saves you a bit of embarrassment as much as anything else. But then, alongside that, I'll write down my characters with multi-wounds. And then, when they take a wound, just put a little dash by them and start a tally.
Yeah, that's, I suppose, a good way, isn't it?
Because then also you write down your warlord trait, because that's usually the thing that reminds me to roll for a warlord trait. And you can write down any other effects that happen during the game as well. Yeah. Because you never know when something might... Like, if you're using Horus, I'd want to note down how many times I'd hit a character and reduced his stats. Definitely, yeah. It's a book and a pen. Yeah, very simple. It just helps keep... And the other thing it does is, what I tend to try and do is at the top I'll write down my name, their name, and I'll tick off when each of us has a turn. So we know exactly where we are in the turn. There's a few other things you can do around that, so you know what's going on in the turn. You can also note down victory points if you're collecting them through the game. Yeah, that's so. And what it does is it just helps again stop that. Oh, I took 2 wounds off him. I was like, no, because when it happens, I draw it. You saw me mark it down, and you've done that 1 wound, and I marked it off. And the more you get into the habit of it, the more you get used to saying, oh yeah, no, I'll mark that down. And you can keep a real track of what's going on the table. And that's something that, I learnt off of the Warhammer tournament scene. To keep that book, I must admit the Warhammer one was a lot more utilised. The page was a lot more full than the 30k one is.
Yeah, I can imagine, actually.
But yeah, because, also things is, I know you've got the psychic cards, but I kind of get into the habit of writing down what I got. So this dude's got these psychic abilities, this dude's got these psychic abilities. Because again, sometimes cards get mucked up, get put in with other cards. Oh, well, did I roll that? I'll roll that. And it's little things, and a lot of the time you remember anyway. But it just helps you in those times you don't. Yes. You got anything else? We kind of, I feel we brushed over it quite quickly, but
I think that's most of it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else, but I can't think of anything that jumps out at me. I'm sure someone will probably email us and say, what about this?
Yeah, feel free. The last kind of thing that's really obvious is having an electronic device. So we're now finally getting the electronic versions of rulebooks, which means you can have, if you want, and this is something that divides people again, that having an ebook can save space, can save weight when you're travelling around. You don't have to carry loads of books with you. You got it all on one Kindle, one iPad, what have you. I'm a big fan of the interactive iPad versions of the books because, as I said, with the Mechanicum one, when I got that, you click on a unit, you go into that unit, it tells you all their rules, and that rule will come up, and you can click on that rule, and it will tell you what that rule is there and then.
I think that's actually, I'm starting to lean towards that now.
Yeah,
I might just buy them all electronically and use those for when I want to go around places.
There's always a bit of it's a tough one between the one thing that you can't generally do on these ebooks, the e-format, is skim through a book. So it doesn't happen as much with the 40k rule set, though it does happen. But in Warhammer, it happened a lot, where you had to extrapolate 2 or 3 rules to find out how this situation worked. It does happen in 40k, but nowhere near as much in my experience. And when you're doing that, what you want to do is flick through a rule book, because you're like, I don't know what rule I'm looking for.
Yeah, you're sort of intuitively just going through I know there's something in here somewhere.
I need to check the movement section, and I need to check the charge section, and I need to check the other section. But when you're just looking for a rule, and with the interactive one where you can just click it and go, oh yeah. And as I said, particularly with Mechanicum, when you're like, right, it's a Volkite weapon. It's one of the 5 or 6, and I can't remember which one.
Which section is that in, and you end up flicking to the front, to the back.
43? Is it 37? Is it 22.5 inches range? And when you can just press on it and go, oh, it's this. Oh, and it's got that special rule. Brilliant. Then that's a beautiful beast as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think I'm quite tempted to go that route.
Yeah, and it's tough. I love books, don't get me wrong. I'm in this weird kind of stage where I'm more than happy to go electronic, but in certain circumstances I'm sticking with a dead tree. I'm collecting the Horus Heresy series in hardback. Part of me wishes I didn't bother, because I would have gone ebook by now. But yeah, that's the way I've gone. Part of me loves it. But with other stuff, I'm quite happy to go digital. And to the end of 8th edition Warhammer, I was starting to just go digital. I was like, nope, I'm fine, I'm happy. I'd rather just have them in one place where they're not taking up all the room, and I've got them all with me. So if I just want to have a little think about an army, I can click to it.
I think that's the thing for me as well. If you've got them digitally, you could do things with them anywhere, rather than thinking, when I get home, I'll have a look at that. Yeah,
if you've got, on your lunch break, and you can have your iPad out or what have you, and you can have a look and you can choose which one without having to think in the morning, I'll take that book in just in case I want to have a look at it.
Yeah.
And going along with that as well is probably army builders.
Yes.
Do you use any?
Pardon?
Do you use any?
Yes, I do. I use BattleScribe.
Okay. BattleScribe's not bad. Personally, I cannot stand Army Builder, the format it publishes lists in. BattleScribe's manageable for me. I use Quartermaster on my phone, but that's Apple only. I think it's still Apple only. So if you haven't got an Apple, you're going to have to use something else anyway. Yeah, those are great, fun little devices for playing around with an army.
And you know what I've found with them as well is unlocking things that you didn't realise you could take through multiple books. You know,
Right.
when the new black books come out and you've skimmed over a section, you haven't really read it properly, and then you didn't realise that yes, you could take a command tank as an HQ in that force that you're thinking, what can I take?
Sure.
Just funny little things like, oh yeah, I could put that with that.
Yeah, I haven't looked at because I don't use BattleScribe or Army Builder, I haven't looked at their files. Quartermaster is very much everything's put in one file and then you filter out what you want. But BattleScribe obviously will work differently with. Is it individual armies for BattleScribe? So you download the Iron Hands?
No, you
download
the 30k
Sure, similar
data.
Then. Okay.
But then it's very much you have to go through and select what what you're doing.
So the one issue you have with these formats is that data might not be correct. So that's just inputted by a person, and if they've made a mistake, then unless someone notifies them of that mistake, they may not realise.
Yes.
With most of these, you can do your own. With Quartermaster, it's very easy to do in the app. You open the app, you go to template, you edit the template, and you go, oh yeah, he's put that as 5 points lower than it is. Changed it, boom, and then your app is up to date. So I actually did that with the Mechanicum book. There was not many changes, but there were a handful of changes. When it kept telling me my tech thralls were like 200 odd points, I was like, no, I don't think they are. But that was a very simple error that just needed a couple of clicks to fix. So be very aware that when you're doing these, you might need to double check what you're doing.
Yeah, you have to be a little bit careful.
Yeah,
and I found that BattleScribe wasn't very good at limitations within Rights of War.
Not many of them are, because that's a whole different ballgame, really. It relies on you to know the rules. They can't put all the rules on, for starters. So when you're looking through, it doesn't tell you a huge amount about the special rules, what they do. You might have the special rules for the unit and the equipment, but that's all you'll get. So what you have to do is be aware of how you're buying them, or if sometimes it's when those units shift their position as well, depending on a character.
Yes.
So the character may say, oh, this makes this unit elites or what have you, or troops, but the unit entry might not be duplicated in each of those sections. So you just need to be thinking. You need to have a background understanding of what you're doing to get the most out of it as well, and make sure it's working for you. Yeah,
I'd say that. Yeah, I mean, I must admit, I've only found a few minor bits and pieces of BattleScribe that I thought, well, that's come up wrong. But it's usually it's just allowed you to do something that you shouldn't be allowed to do. So it's not. I haven't found any major points issues or anything like that so far.
Right. Yeah. And these things tend to get weeded out over time anyway, depending on how much the originator of that file cares.
Yes.
Or has time, or what have you. I say with Quartermaster, I personally find it really easy to do. I used to sit, when the Warhammer books come out, for a while, I was sitting down on my sofa on the Saturday morning when it came out, and I'd just spend a few hours watching a film, and boom, there's a Quartermaster file. And my mates would download it and then go, oh, you got this wrong, you got this wrong, you got this wrong. Okay, 5 minutes later, fix those problems. And away you go.
Yeah.
I don't know how easy that is with that. All I do here with is, has anyone put the BattleScribe file up for this? Has anyone put the Army Builder file up for this? So I wonder if it's more difficult in those ones. You do get it with Quartermaster as well, but I think it's easier to do yourself than the others. Could be
Yeah,
wrong.
I think by the sounds of it, I think Quartermaster is much more personal customization.
Yes, so but there we go. Who knows? I would say my biggest problem with Army Builder is the way it prints out. So it's just, I'm sure if you use it and use it and use it, it becomes second nature. But when I buy a squad, like I want it nice and easy. Particularly, this is why I ask for plain text documents when people are sending in army lists. I want to see how many people are in this squad. 20. Awesome. What are they armed with? ... Okay, brilliant. And then Army Builder will say there's 9 men in this squad, and then give all their details and all their stats, and then it'll be like, and a sergeant. And I'm like, no, well, there's 10 men in the squad. Just, there are 10 men in there. Just tell me what the extras. Because that's just the way my mind works on it. Here's what I bought, here's the base unit, and this is what I've added.
Yes, yeah.
It's almost giving too much information. But, some people are going to say, what are you talking about? That's the best thing about it. And, that's life, isn't it? Variety and all that.
Yes.
Brings spice. But I think we've covered most of what we were going to cover. There's probably some glaring errors and omissions. We'll have to wait for people to point them out to us.
Yeah, we will.
Excellent. All right, we'll close this up and we'll come back with all the details at the end of the show. Okie dokie, that was the show. Thank you for joining us. We've got a few little bits and pieces to do on the outro as usual. First off, Neil's famous.
I am properly famous now.
Indeed. So tell us what's happened.
So if you're on Twitter, Mengal Miniatures, who's a guy who does a blog, I think it's Tyler, he does a feature every week called Miniature of the Week. And this, the week just gone, he featured the Space Wolf as his Miniature of the Week.
So that's the Space Wolf we have given away as a prize on the show.
Indeed.
Yeah, I had a quick read of that. It was a pretty awesome little write-up. I didn't know he did that, actually. He's quite, he posts quite a lot on Twitter, and he's into the Age of Sigmar as well, so that's where I know him from. It's the first time I've read his blog, actually. It's quite cool.
It's a very good blog, actually. He's very committed to it. Like you said, he posts very regularly. He's a very good painter himself. I believe he's won some Golden Demons, albeit American Golden Demons, which don't count to be proper Golden Demons.
They speak funny.
Yeah, exactly. He's a very good painter, and I must admit, when I read his write-up of the Space Wolf, I thought he actually deconstructed the paint job very well. He really he understands what he's talking about, if you know what I mean, and he really sort of spoke about the details and how the colours worked, etc. It was very, very clever.
Yeah, that was cool. So well done, Neil, getting your model on talked about.
Yeah, indeed.
Indeed. I'd like to say a big thank you to Games Workshop for the interview with John French being plugged on the Black Library Facebook page. That was why last show was split up, because naturally Games Workshop can't really link to something with adverts for other people on, all that kind of jazz. So the show almost has to be its own entity for that. But that's more than worth it, I think. It was a great interview with John as well, or felt like it anyway.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, because obviously I listened to it afresh and as a listener.
Yeah, it didn't quite go the way I'd planned it. As soon as we started, it went off in its own direction, which is fine as far as I'm concerned. Regular listeners know that's the way the show works, but we're certainly going to line up some more. I want John to come back on as well, because pretty much as soon as we clicked off, John and I started a conversation about some other stuff to do with the heresy, and I was like, okay, this is a subject we can talk about. So hopefully we're going to get him back on to do some more work with. But yeah, It's good to finally get back into the hobby side of things, into the fluff side of things on the show. As I said, we'd neglected it. I told you we'd be covering a little bit more of it, so hopefully more going forwards.
Definitely, it was really good.
Cool, thank you. The event, I have put a number of posts up on the event page on Facebook. We are 53 players currently at time of recording, with at least 3 people who've promised me they're buying tickets, waiting for payday or getting back from holiday, things like that. So looking at a really good number. I did want 50 and hope for 60, which turns out for once I was kind of about right, which is amazing.
Excellent.
And I'm just waiting on the prizes to give away, so they should be coming soon. Hopefully get photos up of them, and there's 2 or 3 deals I'm trying to work on with people. Unfortunately, some of those people are very busy and work time doesn't always meet, but we'll get some more information on that very soon. In fact, may even put out a small podcast notice about one of them because of the nature of what it will be. But so keep an eye out for more of that, and that'll be for people who aren't even coming to the event, might be able to jump on one of those opportunities as well. But we shall see on that one. If you still want to come to the event, you can. Just to let you know, the venue has space for 100 gamers. So we've only got 53, 56 when they have the sign up. So there is still plenty of space as well. So just get your go on over to theimperialtruth.com and top right, click on Takan Riva, and all the details are there. So how can they contact us, Neil, if there's anything else to talk about?
Well, they can either get us through our emails, which is greg@theimperialtruth.com or neil@theimperialtruth.com. If you're into your Twitter, my handle is @NeilPaints, and yours is
@ChildOfFang, and the show is @Imperial_Truth. And you can head to Facebook as well. We have had a couple of questions about painting and a couple of little bits that we'll collect up, and we're still going to give you a bit of a break from painting at the moment. Although I've had as many people say they love those episodes and want more as who have said they want the break, but we shall put a break in for a little bit. Otherwise, Neil will continue to talk about all kinds of painting.
I just don't stop.
Absolutely not. So yes, and I think we're coming to pretty much the end. Just because the next episode will come out just before the open day, it's just a reminder, I'm there if you want to come and say hi. Neil isn't there, as he mentioned beforehand, but be more than welcome to have a little chat with you while we're there. Or while I'm there, should I say.
I'll be there in spirit.
Will you? Okay. Yeah. Neil will be there going, what's there, Greg? What's this, Greg? On Twitter at me or whatever.
I'll be WhatsApping you going, give me some more photos.
Yeah, that's it. I'm definitely going to take some time to walk around the displays, because I know they've changed a lot of the fantasy ones recently, so it'll be interesting to see what they've done. I think they've got a couple more 40k at least ones in there, so.
And they often add bits into them, don't they, as well?
Yeah, so.
They make it bigger and better. And
yeah, I haven't actually looked round that for a while, so it'll be well worth going and doing, I think, which will be cool. But yeah, looking forward to that. I'm tempted to go up the day before and see if people are around, but I'll have to see if I can stretch to a hotel room or something. Who knows? But I think we have actually come to the end. So, as usual. So it's good to see you, Neil. We'll chat again next time.
Definitely.
Cool. You have been listening to The Imperial Truth.